Did you know that the United States government is now spending nearly $1 trillion a year just on interest payments? Not on paying down the debt itself, but only on keeping the existing mountain of debt alive. Imagine paying only the minimum balance on your credit card forever, while the bill keeps growing larger each month. That's the situation the world's largest economy is in right now, and it raises an urgent question. How long can America keep this up before something breaks? The U.S. national debt has always been big, but in recent years, it has exploded to levels that once seemed unimaginable. Right now, America owes more than $34 trillion. To put that number in perspective, if you stacked $1 bills on top of each other, $34 trillion would reach the moon and back nearly 75 times. This isn't some abstract number on a government spreadsheet. It's the financial burden that taxpayers, businesses, and future generations will carry. So how did we get here? The story of America's debt is decades in the making. In the 1980s, government borrowing began to accelerate, fueled by tax cuts and heavy military spending. In the 2000s, wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, combined with the financial crisis of 2008, forced Washington to borrow even more. Then came the COVID-19 pandemic, where trillions of dollars were injected into the economy through stimulus checks, unemployment benefits, and business relief programs. Each crisis added layers of debt, and instead of shrinking during good times, the debt kept climbing higher. The result is the mountain we face today. But here's the twist. Debt by itself isn't always catastrophic. Many governments operate with debt, and as long as interest rates stay low, borrowing can feel manageable. For years, America enjoyed historically cheap borrowing costs. But since 2022, the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates aggressively to combat inflation. What used to be a low-cost loan for the government has suddenly become an expensive bill. Every time the Treasury issues new bonds or rolls over old debt, it pays higher interest to investors. That's why interest payments have ballooned to nearly $1 trillion per year, and are on track to become the single largest expense in the federal budget within this decade. Think about what that means. Interest costs are now rivaling what the U.S. spends on its entire defense budget. Soon, America may spend more just to service its debt than it does on Medicare or Social Security. Every dollar spent on interest is a dollar not spent on schools, healthcare, infrastructure, or innovation. In simple terms, the debt burden is starting to strangle the government's ability to invest in its own people. And the impact doesn't stop with Washington. Rising interest rates hit ordinary Americans directly. If you're paying a mortgage, your monthly payments have likely gone up. If you carry a balance on your credit card, the interest charges are higher than ever. Car loans, student loans, business loans, all of them are more expensive. The government's debt crisis filters down into the daily lives of families and entrepreneurs across the nation. What seems like a distant problem in Washington becomes a very real squeeze on household budgets. The global picture is also shifting. For decades, countries like China and Japan eagerly bought U.S. government bonds, financing America's debt. But now those same countries are reducing their holdings. At the same time, more nations are exploring ways to trade without relying on the U.S. dollar. This phenomenon, known as de-dollarization, threatens to weaken America's unique financial advantage. If global demand for U.S. debt falls, the government will have to pay even higher interest rates to attract investors, pushing the debt spiral even further out of control. This raises a frightening possibility. Economists warn that America could enter what's called a debt spiral. In a debt spiral, the government borrows to pay interest, which increases the debt, which leads to even higher interest payments, which then requires more borrowing. It's a vicious cycle that becomes nearly impossible to escape. We've seen similar patterns in countries like Greece during the Eurozone crisis. While the US is far larger and more powerful, no nation is immune to the basic math of compound interest. So where does this leave us? The future can unfold in several ways. In the best-case scenario, the Federal Reserve gradually lowers interest rates as inflation cools down, easing the pressure on debt payments. If the economy grows faster than the debt, the burden becomes manageable. In a middle-case scenario, policymakers enact tough choices, raising taxes, cutting spending, or reforming entitlement programs. These steps are politically unpopular, but they might stabilize the situation. And then there's the worst-case scenario. The debt keeps climbing, interest rates stay elevated, foreign investors lose confidence, and the U.S. faces a full-blown fiscal crisis. That could mean inflation, a weaker dollar, and painful sacrifices for American households. Experts have floated potential solutions, but none are easy. Some argue for raising taxes, especially on corporations and wealthy individuals. Others push for cutting defense spending or reforming Social Security and Medicare. Still others believe the key lies in fueling economic growth, so the debt shrinks relative to GDP. The truth is that solving America's debt problem will likely require a combination of these measures, along with a willingness from politicians to make difficult, long-term decisions. But while policymakers debate, the clock is ticking. Every second, the U.S. debt clock increases by tens of thousands of dollars. Every minute, the government owes more in interest. And every year, the challenge grows harder to solve. This isn't just a statistic, it's a storm gathering on the horizon. For ordinary Americans, the concern isn't abstract. It's about whether the next generation will inherit opportunities or obligations. Will your children and grandchildren live in a nation that invests in their future, or one that spends most of its money just servicing past debts? Imagine a household that spends all its income on credit card interest, with nothing left for groceries, repairs, or savings. That's the risk America faces if it doesn't change course. Some economists remain optimistic, pointing out that the U.S. still has enormous strengths: the world's largest economy, unmatched innovation, deep financial markets, and the reserve currency of the world. As long as the dollar remains dominant, they argue, America has breathing room. But even these optimists admit the current trend cannot continue forever. Confidence is a fragile thing, and once it starts to crack, events can unfold rapidly. So what happens next? Will Washington finally confront the debt storm head-on? Or will leaders continue to kick the can down the road? Will Americans demand change? Or will they accept a future where interest payments dominate the national budget? The truth is, no one knows for sure. But one thing is clear: the stakes are higher than ever. The United States is at a crossroads. The choices made in the next few years will shape not just the economy, but the lives of millions of families. The question is not whether the debt matters, it's how much longer it can be ignored. Because if the current path continues, the bill will come due, and the cost may be more than America is prepared to pay. So I'll leave you with this. If America's debt clock never stops ticking, how long before it breaks the system? And when it does, who will pay the price? You, me, or the next generation? America's debt clock is racing faster than ever, and the storm ahead is unavoidable unless real action is taken. But the bigger question is, who will carry the burden? Washington, Wall Street, or ordinary families like yours? If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into the economy, and share your thoughts below. Will America fix its debt crisis, or are we headed toward collapse? Your voice matters in this conversation. If you liked the video, do like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for latest updates on financial news about US. Until next video, take care.